we might run into him later. Shout out to KP, one of the homies that be coming through the bar and whatnot. He Jamaican Indian.
Wow, that's what's up.
You probably seen him around, fucking. But he literally, every time I see him, I'm like, "What up, my Indian brother?" He's like, "Bro, like, be honest with you, bro. I did not grow up with any Indian culture. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's straight up Jamaican, out of Jamaica.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You look at him.
He looks hella Indian.
On some Sean Paul shit.
Bro, literally. And welcome back to the 2 Coin Podcast. It's your boy Ronnie.
And I'm your brother Waleed, professional yapper on the other side of the coin. Today's episode is brought to you by integrity and perseverance because we tried to make this happen 2 weeks ago. We had scheduling conflicts, but now we're here. I got two lovely ladies to my right, Maya and Brit. If you guys want to give a brief introduction into who you are, let the people know what to expect.
I'm Maya. I'm girly pop. You know what I mean? I don't know what that means, but
There you go.
yeah.
I'm Brit, y'all. How you doing?
There you go. Starting it off right off the bat here. And you guys, we can ping pong this. You can answer however way you feel is fit. But you went to San Jose State, right, Britt?
Yeah, I went to San Jose State.
And we were talking off air a little bit. You graduated with a biomedical engineering degree?
Yeah, I graduated with a BS in biomedical engineering, and I minored in biological sciences.
So the road to getting that degree, how tough was it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Honestly, going to college in general was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do in my life.
Yeah.
I'm still pretty young, but I mean, that was definitely a turning point. And like, just the degree in general, it took a lot of work. Like I had to prioritize time just to like intentionally study. And just the time I had to put in like after class, like in class, there was a lot of things that was like difficult, like walking in and being the only black girl. And like, you know, it was just like the concept and like, just like, it was just difficult to understand. And so, yeah, I graduated in 5 years and not 4, which is nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. It took me 5.5, so. Yeah.
Well, if you finish, you finish.
If you finish, you finish.
Like, that's deserves to be celebrated. But, it was a hard road. I think I just learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself, I think it was a lot of education, but also just learning about myself as a person and just how like my habits and flaws and things that I did and how I had to be disciplined and responsible and things like that. But
you see that translating into like your day to day, like today? You know
I think when I came to college, I wanted to learn and like experience. And so I was like outside and like at parties and stuff like that. And like my first semester, like me doing all that and like really not having rules with myself kind of just contributed to me not doing so in my first semester. And then I had to like learn time management and learn to prioritize. And I definitely didn't want to just be a school girl and like in the books. I also wanted like the social life and like grow that way too and like experience different people. And so I had to manage that. Like I had to prioritize time when I was going to study and prioritize time when I was going to socialize or be with my friends and like me time too. And I think that translates to my day to day. Just prioritizing myself, but also getting things done that need to be.
We were talking about this with, shout out to Zuri. We were talking about this with Zuri on the podcast we recorded. But we had a similar conversation to where it's like, a lot of people talk about college as a scam, right? I wouldn't necessarily go that far. I wouldn't say it's a scam. I think it's useful, but it might not be worth the hefty price tag that they place on it.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, you're hitting the textbooks, you're regurgitating information, pause. But then it's not, you don't retain any of that information years down the line. You don't remember what you learned in calculus or whatever class you take. But the value you take from it is, like you said, time management, learning to handle things like an adult.
Yeah.
And you translate everything that you do in college into whatever pursuit you're trying to do outside of college.
Absolutely.
But you, Maya, you went to university too?
Yeah, so I started at Mills College, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
My second semester of school. And then with that particular college, like they were going through like maybe like closing or needing to get absorbed, and like so it started out as an all-girls school for like undergrad. So then like there was just a lot of question marks and like about the university. So I was like, okay, let me just work while you guys figure that out.
Yeah.
And then now I go to Chabot. Yeah.
Chappelle?
Chabot.
Oh, that's
So it's a junior college out in like Hayward.
okay.
What are you studying?
That's like a space college too, right?
They have like
Space
Chabot's like something sciences center.
Yeah, I think I went there as a kid.
Yeah. I think, is it like near Mountain View now?
I don't know if it's out here. I think it's near
It's over
like
there.
Berkeley, SF area.
Yeah. They
In
have
the East
something
Bay.
like that.
But yeah, what are you studying?
So it'll be like a transfer certificate title. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
But it's in allied health sciences. So I'm working towards my nursing degree because I want to be a certified nurse midwife. And yeah, so I basically am doing like all the like standard college classes I need to take and then like the sciencey stuff that I need so I can transfer.
Hell yeah.
So does that
Yeah.
fall under the STEM category too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then: how useful has your like close relationship been as far as her? You know, you're done with college
Yeah.
now. Do you give her any like tidbits of advice on how to navigate and how to get through
Yeah.
day to day?
Like she can say that she's gonna wake up at 4 a.m. and wake up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to my discipline, like I'm still kind of learning what that's like.
Yeah.
Because like I've like started and stopped school a few times now, and like this is the time where it's like sticking.
Yeah. Nothing wrong
And
with that.
so
Everybody
Yeah.
got their own journey.
exactly,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
exactly. And now it's just like I feel like I'm in a point where I have a bit more perspective on how I am as a student. And like this semester, it didn't go as exactly as planned, but it's like I know exactly where I fucked up. Sorry, I don't know if you curse.
No,
But
you curse away.
I didn't like I can better pinpoint it as to when I first went to school, and it was just like everything all at once.
Yeah.
And like kind of learning the adulting part that you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
Of like governing yourself.
That's a good point because I don't know, like speaking from personal experience, like when I went to school, there was a lot of dissatisfaction with the school journey. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah.
Especially,
Yeah.
you know, Britt, going into like the school of engineering.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like hard-nosed teachers. There's a lot
Absolutely.
of like, tough curriculum.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things that get thrown your way. But when I was like 19, 20, 21, the way I looked at it was everybody else's fault and not mine. But it takes a while for you to kind of just like mature into realizing
It's your responsibility.
it's your responsibility to get your degree. Nobody's
Absolutely.
gonna hold your hand through it.
Yeah.
So I guess my question to you is when did you make that realization? Was it closer towards graduation or was it like towards the beginning?
I think that like growing up, I was pretty good at school and like I definitely set high expectations for myself. So when like the first semester I didn't perform like how I would quote unquote usually would, I think that was a turning point for me for the fact that like the teachers aren't going to hold my hand or like get like, you know, cater to me because like I'm cool or like I'm nice. Like it's like, no, we want to see the work, you're late. Like I don't accept work that way. So yeah, piggybacking off of what you said about like the hard-nosed teachers, like I really had to learn that like they don't care if you don't come to class or not. Like they're going to get a check regardless, and we don't have a personal relationship together, especially because like the classes were huge, you know, especially in like general ed. Like we were in like 150 plus students and and I really didn't talk to my teachers. I was just a number on the sheet. And I feel like that also played into like me just being one of the only Black girls in there. And I just kind of tried to blend in a way, I guess. Yeah, I didn't want to take up a lot of space. So I really didn't talk to my teachers. And it was that realization where it's like, you have to do what you have to do to get this grade. So if it means going to office hours, if it means studying extra hours, because the way you perform first semester, it's not going to translate if you continue to do this for the rest of the years. So I think that's where the turning point was for me when I was like, you're in charge. Like they don't care. They're not going to hold your hand. Your parents aren't here. Like this is all on you. You chose this route. So like you need to do what you have to do if you want to end up like graduating. And so yeah, I think my first semester really was like, it just screamed at me because I really did terrible. And I was like, you know, partying and like, I had a lot of fun and I would never do it any differently because it gave me a lot of lessons. But it was like, what are you really here for? You know, like your parents can barely help you. You're on your own out here. You're taking out all these loans and are you going to waste your money or no? Like, and so like that, I think like after my first semester, it was like, okay, you have to write down this and a planner. You need to be very organized and like other ways to succeed if this is the field that I wanted to be in.
Did you go to state straight out of high school or did you spend 2 years?
I did. I went to state straight out of high school and that in itself is hard.
Yeah.
It's like a light switch, you know?
Yeah, I feel like it's different too because you're so young, like you're still like
at 18.
Yeah.
And you're like out on your own, so it takes like a certain type of wisdom that's not necessarily easy.
And you got to think too, because you're coming from a world that's super like, regulated in a sense. High school is an environment that's, you know what I mean? It's not the real world. It's not even an example of the real world. Yeah. So that's why you'll see a lot of like freshman year, a lot of like post high school maneuvering from people.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Some people
still finding themselves like without the regular like routine of my parents are driving me here, or I have to go through here. I'm at school from 7:30 to 4.
The people who are like, they were so happy to get out of that because it was shit for them. And then you see the people who are lost without that, like,
without that structure,
like, what was going on? Like, high school, it was everything for me. Like,
absolutely, yeah.
I think that, like, the momentum that's placed onto young people and young adults is so crazy.
It is crazy.
Because, like, this person has been going to school, like, since they were, like, maybe, like, 5 or 6 to 18. Like, you wouldn't think that
they need a break.
You know, like they've done what they needed to do after graduating, hypothetically. Graduating, and they wouldn't need a year or some change.
Yeah, just to relax. And I think that goes into play about like how like our society is about just like work. Because I talked to my parents about this before and how it was never not an option for me to not go to school. Like that was just gradually my next step, the next stepping stone to get a job and like make money and stuff like that. And then like as I went through
template.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then as I've like been out here and been able to meet like different kind of people and see people on different paths and things like that, it makes like I didn't really have to go to school, you know, like I'm glad where I am. And like, it was just an option. It wasn't the correct route. And I remember I used to like, when I was like in high school or like fresh out of high school, I used to like, you're not going to school. Like, what are you doing? Like be like that and stuff. And that's like so ignorant, like thinking back, but like, that was like what was instilled in me and that this was the only option what you need to do.
Yeah. The traditional route. It's funny that you say that too, because I remember having a conversation with my dad about this years ago. Shout out to Pops. But he's very like traditional, strict baby boomer, and I'm the oldest son, so like there's a certain set of expectations placed on me, especially for him as an immigrant coming from nothing. You got to go get your education, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember talking to him, and I'm like, bro, like I've been to school since I was 5 years old. I graduated I wasn't even 18 when I graduated. I was 17 when I moved into the dorms. And I graduated college at 23, then immediately went into a job, and now boom, here I am. And in the past 2 or 3 years, especially like in the working world, I've experienced a sense of quote unquote what they call burnout, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that takes time to like recover from.
Right.
Like you can burn out socially, you can burn out professionally, you can burn out in a bunch of different ways, but there's a lot of responsibilities that are placed on you once you enter adulthood that can kind of weigh you down if you don't know how to manage all the responsibilities emotionally. And I feel like once I realized that, I talked to my dad about it, and I'm like, bro, it would have been really helpful if I would have just had like a year or a year and a half in between age 17 and 18 to just kind of just take it off and figure out what I want to do with myself instead of my senior year just being thrust into, okay, pick a major. Yeah. And now I feel like I'm kind of stuck with it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Do you feel like that was kind of your experience too? Both of you can answer.
I think that when I chose to do biomedical engineering, my dad like majored in like electrical, like electrician, and that's what he wanted me to do. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't care about circuits and semiconductors and all that. Like, I didn't really like, I don't care. And I wanted to do biomed, and I really enjoyed like the content of what I was learning. So like that benefited me because I like grew up watching Grey's Anatomy and wanted to be a doctor, and like it's a great show. It's still running. And so like biomed was like the perfect intersection for me. So like I wanted the degree, and so not with a lot of pressure from my parents. They were very supportive. They also wanted me to have a degree, but it also fueled me more because I wanted it for myself, and I really liked what I was learning. And so yeah, I wouldn't. It's hard to say. Like, I wish at the time, I think that I would have chose the same route, but I wish at the time I knew that there could have been other options. Like if I wanted to be in the creative space or, you know, do something different or just take a break. I might have done that, but I do think that ultimately I probably would have ended up like this way too.
Yeah. Was there ever any point in your schooling? Because when I look back at it, I just mentioned I experienced burnout for the first time.
Yeah.
Well, not for the first time, but I was aware of what it meant to burn out or what it felt like, and then I learned how to kind of prevent it moving forward. Yeah. And then once I reflected, I'm like, there were points in time where I was in college where I was burnt out and didn't even realize it, but I just kept going anyway.
Absolutely.
Was that the case for you, any of you?
Yeah, I feel like there was a lot of burnout. I think my burnout and when I became very overwhelmed were signs of like me being very anxious and me not really sleeping. And I used to like dream about like solving a test like problem equation in my like dreams and stuff. And like I used to like, I think when at that point, I was stressed. And I think that me being very, because I'm pretty chill and I'm pretty lax and like easygoing, and I feel like when I was like really tense and like things like that, the excuse was, oh, it's because it's finals, or you know, like this is what I'm like supposed to be doing and it's just right now. But I was like completely depleted, and like looking back, it was like, wow, like maybe you should have taken a break at that time. And like especially when COVID happened, I was like very unmotivated to continue, and it was just like, I'm not going in person and I'm just like looking through a camera. It's very normalized now, but back then it was like, bro, like this is not what I wanted, because it was like there was no more like hands-on labs and like things like that. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of times where I was just burnt out, and I just like excused it as like what I had to do, or it was final season.
That does
like,
take the love out of something when you can't actually physically be with the craft you want to be. You know what I mean? Like, because that's kind of what happened with COVID when I ended up, because I started at Cogswell like what, a semester before COVID hit. So you know what I mean? Audio, music, all that stuff, it's hands-on, working in the studio, getting reps, being back there. COVID hit, and the rest of my program was all online for the next 2 years. Like, you know what I mean? So it was just one of those, like, you learning about how to run a studio through a screen. It's like, I might as well watch the YouTube video instead of paying all this money for a degree.
Right,
you know
yeah.
And, like, I know I don't learn like that. Like, I need to feel stuff. I need to be around. I need to talk. I need to, like, be in the space to, like,
very, like, interactive.
Like, being behind a laptop, like, it's so easy to, oh, let me check my email. Oh, let me go on YouTube. Oh, and then
the surfing
goes left from there.
It's like same thing picking up your phone. Like, you know what I mean? You pick it up to send a text. You on it, put it back down. You're like, fuck, I never sent that text.
Yeah.
That's 2 months later.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I never heard back from them. And then like going like, oh, you didn't send the message.
They never heard back from you.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I wanted to take a break, and like when I graduated high school, but because like I feel like low income kids and like kids of color are often pushed, like, you need to go to that 4 year right away, or like your life
to make it out.
Like,
Mm.
gonna go down a road that's like not conducive to like what they've been trying to mold you into, or like make sure that you achieve.
Yeah.
And so like I'm grateful for like my actual journey, but it would be nice to have like seen what it would have been like if I had a break and went to like started at the junior college and then.
Do you think that like your schooling journey would have been like more consecutive if you were able to take a break initially?
I don't know, because like COVID, like, you know, like I don't know what it would be like if I was at wherever I would be at that point. But I think on the topic of burnout and just like navigating mental health once you are alone and at like not around people, you know, I think that would still be a transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. You mentioned it at the beginning, but like the idea of being able to take a break is kind of a luxury. Like some people can't really afford to take a break.
Yeah.
You gotta keep
the break
going.
would be them working, but they're not in school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like some people, it just in the broader sense of like just a broader worldview, some people can't afford to even think about their mental health.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, it's like I gotta do what I gotta do.
Right.
Keep going.
I mean, it's like what you were saying the other day, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Like until you got certain needs met, you can't worry about self-actualization.
You can't worry about self-actualization until you got your basic needs met: a roof over your head, water, food to eat, people that love you. And you're gradually trying to like accomplish each one until like experiencing burnout, so to speak, is kind of a luxury.
Yeah,
you know,
it is said
to give in to be able to kind of treat it. It's like a luxury that people outside of the Western world don't get to experience.
It's like the whole concept of like I can't afford to be sick right now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
but rest is not a luxury. Like that's a necessity.
That's a dangerous road to go down too. Like,
it is.
We're humans, right?
Yeah, like it's necessary. Like we have to sleep at night, and you know, like just that like whole cycle of us needing to sleep and then being awake and our body replenishing while we're sleeping. Like it's the same way if you're consistently working and like you're constantly at like a high attention span, or like even like throughout the day, like on a day-to-day work. Like I work a lot on the computer, and it's like, no, I need to go take a walk. Like, you know, if it's every 3 hours or something like that consistent, like no, like your body needs it. Like it's telling you you have to move. Yeah. And so it's like, that's why it's like take your vacation, you know, like eat up those vacation days, because it's like just we need rest, especially in like how society is driven of work and working 40 plus hours if your salary and things like that. Like, but yeah.
Would you say you needed more rest as a student, or you need more rest now as a working adult?
Now.
I think now I wish that I valued my rest a little more when I was a student. But I think now with the additional like responsibilities that I have and like that takes a strain on what I'm thinking about, or if I'm stressed about this or different like financial responsibilities and things like that, that I probably get more burnt out in different ways in school, that I would need more rest now. Especially because like when you're in class, it's like, or when you're in school, you have like an hour class, and then you have a 2-hour break, and then you have another class, and then like you're able to walk back to the dorm or go home or just relax, rather than like
it's not consistent work.
It's not consistent work, and like when you're on your job, you know, you're expected the typical 9 to 5, or like you're gonna be there all day. Like I'm not gonna go home and then come back to work and like do that. Like I have, I have to work consistently, but those breaks I do put in between to recharge a little bit.
When you're a student, obviously, like, there's different, like, scales to it. But, like, for people like me who, had the financial aid and school paid for and things like that, you don't really have much on your plate outside of school.
Exactly. Like that was your only responsibility. Yeah. And then your part-time job was, like, spending money. Like, it wasn't,
it was like, spending money.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's 200 for the 3 weeks.
Literally, I used to think I was making bank. I was like, I got $250 just for fun.
I remember at a restaurant, just walking out with all those tips. I'm like, it's about to be a good weekend.
Motherfuckers is ordering out. What I mean?
But Britt, you mentioned this earlier. You kind of alluded to it being the only black woman in a lot of your classes in engineering. Yeah. I can relate to a certain degree. I was like I'm the only black person in a lot of my classes, and there were times at points of my schooling when I was a university student, to where I kind of forced myself to interact with some of my classmates, even though I didn't have anything
in common
to share with them on a personal level.
Yeah.
But with like Ronnie and DJ and Nick, salute to everybody, all my salute. That was the only time I felt I could really be myself, was around the people.
Yeah.
But, look at me getting the yap for that. But when I was in class, it's like you have to kind of force yourself to, be uncomfortable around, like, connect with people in order to like get.
Do you feel like you put on a face when you were in class?
100%. It's similar to the face.
Absolutely.
We were talking about this on the last podcast. It's very similar to the face that I put on for corporate America, and
like code switching.
Yeah, looking back on it now, it's I was being trained to put on that face to go to class.
Yeah.
Obviously, though, like, it's different for you being a black woman. So just speak to that experience and how it kind of impacted you.
Yeah, I mean, my first couple years, like I was saying, like I was very like quiet and like shy and timid. That's not really like my normal characteristics, but in class, like when I would have a question, it would be like on the first step of the problem, and they're already on step like 20. And so I would feel like insecure to ask, like, can you go back to the very beginning, because everybody else around me is like getting it. And especially me being the only black girl, or like one of the very few in there, it's like, I don't want it to make it seem like I'm just not keeping up, and like, and you're already on this step and I still haven't gotten the first one. And so that really was difficult for me because I was falling behind. And so I spent a lot of time studying like outside, because and like teaching myself, because I was too shy to ask questions and things like that. I think another thing is like the expectation of the other students in class was that you're not really that smart. Because I have multiple like experiences in labs and stuff when it would be like I would say something and they wouldn't really take what I say like
brush it off.
Yeah, they would brush it off, and then like later down along the line, it would be like, oh, you should have listened to me from the very beginning. Like one example was like we were building some like thing with popsicle sticks, and they wanted to like nail the popsicle stick. I was like, it's gonna split if you nail it. Like we can't like you can't nail a popsicle stick. She don't know
what she's talking about.
Oh no, it's not. I think we're okay. And they wanted to use the glue, and they like and I'm literally, and then I was like saying we should use the glue, and they used the nail and it split. Like, okay, we got this far for you to just do what I said that was going to happen in the very beginning. And I think that was very minuscule, but I think that was like one of the first
example though.
Like experiences like you think you're just
police your
like
behavior across
exactly.
Then if you talk about, like, oh look, I was right now
exactly. And so it was just like you like something so small, you really didn't take what I say. Why didn't you take what I say when you guys are like bouncing ideas back to back? And like, when I was in different like lab groups and stuff, I was very just like isolated, I felt like, and I was just like ostracized and like a lot of the things, and like that's just like one example. And it was like I had to like really talk to myself about it, because I would be like, oh, like this person next to me is really smart and like they're getting good grades. And then like as I started to feel like just actually doing the work, I would see, oh, we're getting the same score. Like, hold on. And then I had to really like tell myself, like, you are in like the same class of people and you're going to the next step just like them. You're passing your classes. You're seeing them again. Like, you're doing what you need to do. Like, this is the space you're supposed to be in. And you're like, take up space, because obviously they're not that much smarter than you, or like maybe it just takes you longer to learn it or like grasp this concept, but like you're supposed to be here. And I think that like when I got to that mentality is when I started to feel more comfortable in myself and like more confident, not really so much like the imposter syndrome of like, I don't know, like, am I smart enough? Like, should I ask this question? It's like, girl, obviously you're doing something right. Like, you're supposed to be here. But yeah, like I've had a lot of experience of them not. I had to like stop trying to prove to them that I was smart and proving to them that I need to be here, and more so speaking to myself about it. And it's like, once I got that like confirmation within myself, it was like, oh, like what you say, like it's comedy at this point. Like, you don't even know, like I just aced this like exam. But okay.
Like you said, comes from understanding that everybody in that classroom, like save for like 2 or 3 people who were like genius level IQ maybe. Yeah. But like everybody's kind of on the same playing field to where they're kind of having the same struggles that you are exactly. And once I realized that, it made it easy for me to kind of collaborate academically.
Yeah, and everyone sees different perspectives and have something to bring to the table. Also, like when it was like a lot of group work, if it's like the really smart ones, they weren't really like good at like making the presentations. Like there's little to no information on this and it doesn't really look like cute. Like this is ugly. But you have all the information in your head. But okay, well, let me like make this presentation, which is just as important as like the actual content of it is like, how is it appealing to the eyes? Because your classmates would like grade you, and if they didn't like how it looked or couldn't read it, they were gonna give you like low scores. So it's like everyone brings something to the table when like balancing that. And I also had to learn that about myself, like, oh, he may be hella smart, or like she may be hella smart, but like you're good at this too in some capacity, and like you're valuable as well. So
it's one of those like you said, going back to everybody's at the same level. So sometimes people overdo how they put their knowledge out there, and try to like gatekeep their information because they feel like this keeps
like we all struggling together.
Else.
Yeah, share the info.
We just came into this class together. Just because you read the book more than
exactly.
What I mean,
like give me the summary of the chapter. Like help a girl out.
You feel me?
I used to hate the students that gatekeep. Sorry to cut you off, but I used to hate that. Like, bruh, help. Like,
I mean, at the end of the day, that's really all it is. Because then once you get into the workforce, you really can't
collaborate.
You cannot be.
Because at the end of the day, everybody's trying to solve a problem, whatever
exactly.
It may
be. A common goal. So
and everybody's just trying to figure it out and pretend that they haven't figured it out.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about.
Exactly.
But you as a courage student, do you kind of feel any of that stigma that we talked about?
Yeah, like no, definitely the whole like okay. And to be fair, like I don't present like I think I've gotten comfortable like saying that I don't know. Like I'm not familiar. Like it has been a minute since I've done like because English, cool. Math, apparently I can still do math. But when it comes to science, like I am a little bit like, okay, like do what I barely remember from high school. Like, is it going to help? And so I think I'm comfortable like owning that there might be stuff that I need to learn. But then it's kind of like that fine line of me owning that and then being seen, not taking seriously when I do have things to say of like, oh, I think it's this, or the steps are XYZ, and then it's like like let's see, let's ask, and it's never bad to ask and make sure that you're on the right track. But when it only happens to you, people are, like you said, bouncing ideas off each other or just kind of taking the reins and doing it themselves. It's just kind of like
it's like intimidating a little bit. Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna fight you. Like but there is a lot of that, and I think I try not to. I don't internalize it because like I also know like people have different backgrounds, but we're all in this classroom right now.
Yeah.
We're all here to get this like class done, and so it doesn't matter if they maybe came from a more privileged school like education system, or rather
because this is where you are now.
Yeah.
We all starting at the same level,
right?
It's like a reset.
Yeah,
that's one thing I wish I would have had as a student is just being able to have the mindset of I'm trying to get this degree. If the question I gotta ask sounds stupid to him,
exactly.
He's not like if he's standing in the way of me getting my degree, then I'm gonna push him out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It don't matter. Honestly.
Yeah.
But it goes back to just being young, teenager, early 20s, and caring too much about what people think, which is natural.
Yeah.
sometimes you wish you kind of just
didn't care. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
But now that you've entered the working world, is there some of that present outside of college too, like in like a professional setting?
Yeah, I think for the first job that I got straight out of school, I was definitely different than everyone. Like I like have my piercings and I have like my tattoos and stuff, and I was definitely one of the younger ones. The role I got, they weren't trying to hire someone with no experience because I didn't have experience. I was straight out of school. And so when I got the actual role, a lot of the people there were like older, like in their late 30s, mid 40s. And there was like no Black people for real. I was fortunate enough to work with predominantly women, which was cool, but they were still like older gen and like they knew nothing about my personal life. We talked about the weather, you know? And so I guess I felt like I was coddled a little bit. Like they just didn't really expect me to like excel in the position that when I did. And like I like underestimated me, cool, but it's just like, where is that? Like, why is your expectations of me so low? You know, like initially. And yeah, like I was fortunate to have a manager who was like very supportive and like wanted to like continue to like advise me and give me the knowledge that I needed to succeed. But like everybody else outside of that, it was just like, oh, like she's young and she doesn't really know much. Yeah, she doesn't. She has to prove herself. But it's like, bro, like I get it. Like I am fresh out of college. You guys got your masters, et cetera, et cetera. You've been here for a couple years, you know. But like, there's a reason like why I'm here, and it took me a while to really like be confident to say that. You know, it's still kind of hard when it's like everyone is like expecting the worst of you or like questioning and like things like that. But I don't know. I just kind of don't care anymore, and I feel like that. Time and time again, like why I like ended up like getting my piercings, because my parents are so anti, like you need to have presentation and they're not gonna hire you with these tattoos and piercings and things like that. And it's like, bruh, honestly, I'm gonna stand out regardless, so I might as well just authentically be myself. Like, you know, like if you speak to me and like interview me and I'm educated and I have the background and you feel like I'm personable and you want me a part of your team, then that's all that matters, despite like my appearance. Like if you're sitting here like honing in on me having piercings or tattoos, then like that's your loss. Like I don't want to be at that company if I feel like that is what you're judging me off of.
Yeah. I mean, but at that point, there ain't no point in being in that room.
Exactly. Like no, I mean? Exactly.
Like, why would you want to come to work every day? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Something so superficial, and you're not going to look at my background and my experience, or like, you know, what I did in school and what I researched and things like that. You're going to judge me because I have piercings and tattoos. Like, I don't want to be there. But yeah, so like my first company, it was a lot of that. It was just like I was kind of just different, and different now to me is a good thing. You know, like I love that I go in like being different. But at the time, like, it was kind of, like, it's like, they were all the same. Like, you know, they talked about the same things. I had ages. Yeah, same ages and, like, kind of same experiences. And, like, you know, they were definitely in different, like, phases of their life. Like, they were married and just, like, older. And so, like, me talking about, like, me going out last weekend or, like, chilling with my homegirls, it was just, like, nothing really to relate to when there's, like, oh, we took our kid to,
like you saying, different phases of life.
Yeah, different phases of life. And so, like...
And that's something that I didn't appreciate when I was in college. It's like, cause we talked about it 10 minutes ago. It's like, oh, I was in the classroom, and I can't relate to nobody in the classroom. But it's like it's 10 times harder to relate to people in the workplace.
At work, yeah.
40s and 50s.
At work, and especially like in this space, like engineering or like corporate space, like because they definitely have like different like mentalities and stuff about like why they're at work, or you know. Like,
let me ask you this though: have you ever had to deal with? And you got both of you can answer this. Any type of animosity in the workplace, because not to divulge too much info, but just I'll share my story. I've had to deal with like personally a level of animosity. Mm-hmm. I've been at the same company that I'm at now for the past 5 years. So
oh, nice.
I've earned my stripes.
Congrats.
After the first 2 years, thank you. After the first 2 years, right, like when I was faking it till I made it. A lot of the people because I was in the same situation as you, Brit. Like a lot of people like in their 40s and 50s were looking at me kind of sideways. And I felt like I had to prove myself.
Yeah.
But after the first 2 years, I feel like in the eyes of many of those people, I kind of did, quote unquote, prove myself. But then there was one older dude, he who shall not be named, who doesn't work there anymore. He just started hating on me, bro. Like, he was trying to undermine me, throw me under the bus.
Jealous, man.
Literally, like
yeah,
jealous.
that's envy.
With 2 kids, just like jealous of me, and I'm just like,
because he sees this young.
This is how he wanted his life to be.
Yeah, I'm like, how do I navigate this? I'm just like, you know what? I figured the best way to do it is just to ignore it. It'll piss them off more if I just ignore it.
Right.
So I eventually did, and the motherfucker quit. Good riddance.
Yeah.
But I say that to say,
Hey, turn that mic towards you.
has that been something you guys have had to deal with? Not something like as specific as that, but like any type of animosity or like microaggressions.
Yeah. I think being young is always like at this point in our age, like there's gonna be some level of that in certain spaces, and then like obviously being a black, and I think like because I work in the childcare industry, and yeah, I've definitely had like my like higher ups, like I think it's a jealousy thing sometimes. I think that sometimes people love the thing that they do so much, or I don't even know the motives behind where the energy comes from. Yeah. But like when they see you doing good, or when they see you,
they feel like intimidated,
connection with the kids, or like this, that, and the third, then there's problems now.
Yeah,
they feel it like undermines their own validation, their own.
That they've been doing for so long.
Yeah, it's like they've worked so hard to get here. They have these years experience, and then a newcomer comes in and it's like young.
And sometimes too, it's like people be jealous of your trajectory, not even the fact that you're doing good. It's that, damn, you're doing good and you're doing all this quickly, and thinks about what they were doing at your age. Right. You know
exactly.
What I mean? Or how long it took them to even get to where you're at.
Exactly.
That ain't my problem, bro.
At all.
It's not. It's not. And so if you're able to identify when they're projecting, it's like, bro, that's not my business.
It sounds like a personal problem.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, and like
maybe you should go take care of your kids, buddy.
Go home. And like HR, like depending on where you're at, like they're for the company. You know what I mean? But like utilizing documentation, like people are being like shitty to you and stuff like that. Like
save the emails.
Save the email before the conversation.
Yeah,
keep that paper trail because
I think
a lot of people get away with the behavior being tenured and or just being at a company for a long time. Is that there's not a good like half of it sometimes is like there's not a good enough paper trail, but then the other half is like their excuse to behave like that because they've
been here for so long, or they bring like some type of knowledge. Yeah,
exactly. But I feel like your reaction or lack thereof just dictates how they move.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
I mean, like you said, figuring out if somebody's projecting or not. So
there's like this like boss of mine who would like try to go off on me before the kids came. And so she would do that, and I'm like, yo, like that's
like in what way though? Like she was just trying to like tell you what to do, or like condemning something you've done?
No, it was more so just like I like was I was coming from further away. Like she lived down the street from the school, and I lived like way further away. So sometimes the traffic would just be like beating my ass because it's like 8 a.m. So it was like more so of my like tardiness, and like that's something that I like know and have to work on and like have developed. But like I'm coming from super far away, honey. I'm so sorry, but I'm here. And like I was like the only one who would always be there because she had like people would leave under her all the time. So she would do that, and then so basically I finally did get to a point where I was just like not gonna continue tolerating it because like who do you think you are? Like I'm not gonna work.
Yeah.
You're like tripping on me, especially about something that doesn't affect the kids. Because it was like the third,
it's
like
personal shit.
Personal stuff, and there was like setup time before the day starts, and there wasn't like we were in a class.
It wasn't preventing you for doing your job.
No, not at all. But then when it was time to conflict, like resolve, she didn't even show. She didn't want to have the conversation. She didn't show up, and then it was just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna move over here, you move over there, and so
it's at the end of the day, they just be hating.
They do be hating, but I also think sometimes they just don't really know. Like I've gotten a lot of like microaggressions, like just being in the corporate world, and like it always has to do with like my hair or like just like things like that. I was like, oh, did you dye your hair? No, I didn't. Or like just little things like that. And I think it's also they just aren't around like black people, and so they really don't know the appropriate questions to ask, or if like you're out of line too. And it's also like their curiosity. Like someone like. Oh my gosh, one of my coworkers like came to me one time and she was like, how do you do like your hair like that? Like my edges? Yeah. And I was like, you could do it if you want. Just kidding. Right. But and I was just like, it's just, and just that comment alone, like I just was very aware of the lack of knowledge
or,
that they have.
More out of pocket.
Like,
do you guys, do you and your siblings have the same dad?
That's straight up.
What
racist.
about how many brothers?
That's
I
racist.
have?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
am I the
racist.
youngest?
That's
Did you really
racist.
get asked that before?
Yeah,
I've gotten asked
And
that
I was
before.
like-
My
and
old
then-
direct manager asked me that too. It
Yeah,
was
and
like,
I was
you and your
like,
siblings have the same mom and
Is your
dad.
like not alive. Like, like, I'm not sitting here
Yeah.
asking. Do you and your brother
Are your
have
parents
this-
still married? Like,
like get out of
okay.
here? Well,
It-
yeah, that's
it'd be
a little
stuff
bit more
like
tame,
that.
But like,
no,
yeah.
like,
if your parents are married, like that's like
okay, I guess that's
Yeah,
like.
now that you guys mentioned it,
They be saying stuff like that.
You
Like,
know, I didn't
you're
think about
expecting
it.
my,
Oh, yeah,
my
I know,
mom to
I
be
know, I
like
get
a
it. If
single
someone asks
mom, or
you,
like you're
yeah.
expecting,
No,
my
I
dad.
definitely got asked that during like my first interview. Like
No.
I was there. He's like
First interview.
Yeah, the dude was like talking to me about like technical like
Yeah.
stuff,
Mhm.
and then immediately out of nowhere transitioned to, hey, so what's your family? What's your home
What's your
life?
family structure?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I have a brother, sister, mom, dad. I'm like, yeah. I didn't think anything of it at the time.
No, that like why are you
That's
why are you
crazy.
why are
Do
you
you
asking
live at your
that?
grandma's house?
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Mom,
I'm just like
dad.
replaying that in my head now. I'm like,
Yeah, those are microaggressions
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
crazy.
Because you're
That's
expecting
wild.
me to say
And
certain
then it takes
things,
a
and
lot
why are
to
you
not-
asking me about my family? No, it's okay.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and it takes a lot to not play into it. Like,
Yeah.
I paid that woman dust. Like, she didn't know anything about my personal life because, like, I saw how she would treat the other people of color and like or try to relate to stuff because she might have some like little ethnic grandkids. Like,
Yeah.
like, please.
Sometimes I got caught up in. I'm not gonna lie. Like they'll just like ask me questions and I'll answer and I'd be like,
Hold
wait, like why did you actually ask me that? Or like I wish I.
Like, what's the intent behind it?
Yeah.
and see that exactly what we're talking about right now plays into what we were talking about with Aaron earlier about not being able to be your authentic true self in like when you're working corporate America.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of like middle-aged for lack of a better term, middle-aged white people, like they have that luxury of just bringing their actual selves to work. I gotta check my
Yeah.
personality at the door
Yeah.
for reasons that like are outside of my control. I just have to do it.
Yeah.
And after a while, it kind of starts to wear on you. And so, like, I would advise to everybody just get out of that.
No, yeah, like get out of that. I had to learn once. I had a mentor in school, shout out Professor Journey, but he told me I had to write like a personal statement. I was applying for this internship and I was like, I don't really know what to say. Like I don't have like the background of like, I don't have this internship experience. I don't have any research experience. Like I don't really know what to say in this letter. And like, how do I, like, what story do I have to tell? Like basically. And he was like, no, just be yourself. Tell them like how you got into engineering and how that happened. And he was like, that's what they want to see. They want you to be yourself. And after he told me that, like I forever was like, I should just be myself. Like as a professor, like a white man. He was from Portland though. He was kind of cool. But telling me like, just be yourself. Like tell me, like write it down. And then, he was like, we can help like polish it up. But when he had told me that, it was like, oh yeah, I should be like it went along with like me learning that I was like making grades and things like that. Like just be who you are. Like
Shout out to him.
shout out to him because that was definitely a turning point of like not telling me that I should be acting a certain way. Like, and he's like, no, when we read it, like we're tired of reading the same type of essay structure, like hearing the same story and things like that when they're reading it or choosing candidates for different opportunities. So yeah, that was definitely a turning point for me to be like, honestly, like I have to be myself because I'm who I am and like I am what makes me different than everybody else and I have more things to bring because I'm not like them.
Shout out to him because having somebody to actually like coach
Absolutely.
you through that and tell you that is
absolutely
plays a major
Yeah.
factor versus waiting to figure that out by yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, mentors, that's important. We were talking about it with Zuri earlier. You know what I mean? I remember telling her off panel though, like I feel like I haven't met my mentor yet. Like I've had a couple life mentors, but like, like a business mentor, some like a real mentor that's showing you the ropes or whatever avenue you're trying to go down.
Right.
I don't think not even think. I know I haven't met mine yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
There's still time to come though.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Or you may just pave the way for yourself
I mean?
and then you have a
I
little
might-
mentee.
You feel me?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like the different phases of your life, you kind of come across different mentors organically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My life mentor personally is my dad, right? And then I go to college. I had salute to Danny. He watches this podcast. Yeah, he was he doesn't even know, but he acted as kind of like my mentor in college because he was the only other like black industrial engineering student that I knew.
Yeah.
But he was a couple grades ahead of me, so like he kind of helped walk me through it. And then like when I was in corporate world, I had another mentor that we don't have that same mentor-mentee relationship now. So I'm kind of on the same boat as you, where I'm trying to find my next mentor in the next transition of my life. That I'm trying to go into. But
Yeah.
it all comes in phases.
It does.
Nah, facts.
Divine timing though. Everything works out.
Yeah,
and
divine
sometimes
timing.
like the season is like life is the mentor.
It's like, yeah,
you're-
literally life. You're learning by experience. Like,
Yeah. So why do y'all think that women try to mold their man into what they want him to be, and then end up staying, and also like end up staying in situations longer than they need to.
Yeah.
I know that's
Are you? Yeah. No. Straight in the jugular. No. Are you saying in the sense of like, why do women stay with men, like hoping for like potential?
I mean,
and like hoping them to turn out a certain way.
I guess those are two different questions. And
I feel like the way that you like, they can be two separate ones. Sorry. Because I was gonna say, like, I think it's because the investment part of it. Yeah. I think that they've tried and it's been
put in time,
and they're like, I'm getting older, like I might.
But then the whole maybe my question is more so like focusing on like, why do they try to mold somebody in the first place?
I think we have to take it a step back and like, what are like people's like expectations of like a man and a woman's relationship, and like what they feel like a man should do, and vice versa, what the man feels like the woman should do. And you know, that expectations is also fueling how they are wanting him to act.
You feel like this generation, like people don't talk about those early enough and then find themselves in a situation later where had they talked about it, they wouldn't even been in this situation with a person?
Well, I have a question, because like, what does like what are some examples of like mold? Like, what does that look like? Is it like kind of regurgitating the rhetoric of like the man is supposed to pay for everything? Like, what is molding?
Are you saying like
molding
like look like?
I can fix him.
Yeah, like you know his flaws, or you even you know this is the type of person he is, and you're like, well, if I can make him into this, you know what I mean? Then you know what I mean. I guess maybe working off of potential.
Yeah. Okay.
The scientific. Okay, let me sound like a nerd real quick. It might be a dude that a woman is sexually attracted to, but he low-key like ain't shit. But she just like sticks with him, hoping that he'll fix himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's some good parts.
Yeah, I'm not saying all women are like that, but
there's some good parts that maybe in that moment outweighs like what is lacking.
Yeah, I mean, in a different way. Like, I know I've definitely had my down bad one or two experiences of like liking somebody and like knowing maybe their boundaries of like, I'm not emotionally available right now, and being like, okay, well, it feels a kind of emotional,
and you're sticking around hoping that
sticking around for however long you allow that stuff, and I think that sometimes it's just like you're just caught up in your own delusion of like this person, like this person very may well be giving you mixed signals, or like, and that's like for my particular situation, not necessarily of like the question you
maybe
asked,
I think it's like the hope.
Yeah, it's like your own delusion of like, okay, well, it feels like this way. It's going on for a long time. Like maybe we are getting closer to what I
hope
actually want.
mixed with the investment.
Yeah, because it'd be like, I think this is a very complex question, because I think that it also goes in like, oh, maybe right now they're not where I would want them to be, but they're working towards that. And so, like, maybe if they're working towards that, like, I can stick around until they meet that mark. And then it also plays into, like I was saying earlier, like, maybe these three things are great. It's just lacking here. Like, am I going to leave because I'm not meeting these few certain criteria, when in the long run, these are what you are still hoping that change and like adjust? Like maybe it's like, oh, like he makes me feel good, or like this, like all these great qualities, but maybe you go out too much, and like that's what I'm not really liking. But outside of that, everything is good. Yeah, exactly. As we get over, maybe you'll feel like not really going out too much and like molding
but
him.
It's one of those. Can you blame a guy for, you know what I mean?
Absolutely not.
Maintaining and staying exactly who he was.
Absolutely not. I think that people need to understand that as individuals, I mean, I guess people do change and like merge in relationships and like, you know, consider their partner in a lot of different ways. But I do also think that people are individuals, and like if this is how they met, this is how you met them, you should also be okay if this is how they are going to be forever. Yeah. Because if they're showing themselves that way, like that's who they are. And if you're hoping to change and like hoping to like correct or whatever, quote unquote, then like maybe you need to really actually think about like if you want to be with them, if you're hoping for them to change some part of them.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it happens like internally. Like I think that a lot of the things that people are waiting on people to grow on, or the potential that they see, is like things that they're not necessarily talking to that person about. Like do they even actually know if that person registers that as like a flaw or something that they need to grow on, or is it just like all this internal and like hope and kind of working behind the scenes to put them on the path to be that way when you actually haven't even talked to the person, or maybe the person literally actually has been like, oh, this is where I'm coming from, this is who I am, and this is what it will be. And then just being like, oh, well, I'll just keep hoping, wishing, working behind the scenes.
Do you think it's on the person, or in this case, as we're putting it, like in the frame of a heterosexual relationship, like the man to kind of communicate that up front? Or do you think it's on the woman to do her due diligence and kind of prod those questions out?
I think it's both.
Yeah, I think... Sorry, go ahead. No. Yeah, I think it's you needing to understand, like, what you want out of this relationship and, like, what are your expectations and if this person is meeting them or not. I think that if it's in a sense that, like, the man was a certain type of way and then now he's acting differently, or you weren't aware of this part of him later on and that's now something you're not okay with, and now you're trying to, like, mold him into what you initially thought. I don't really think that, like, people open themselves up as time goes on and things like that. So I think it's just more so like waiting out to see if you're seeing this full person and then making the decision if you really want to be with them in the long run or not. But I also think, like, know your expectations, and, like, if the dynamic of the relationship how it is now is not going to work for you in the future, then understand that and don't try to force them to fit your mode and your craft of what you are imagining in the future, and take what you do have now and is that enough for you. So I think it's like it's like a two-part, but I also think, like, if they're not actually hiding who they are, they just haven't opened that to you, and you find that out later in the long run, and now that's something you're not okay with, well, like, you know, you find out, like, you don't want to be with this person as you get to know them more and more. So if that's, like, something that's not for you, then that's not for you. In the sense of, like, molding, I really don't like that, like, trying to create someone in, like, the image you want them to be, because it's like, first of all, no one's perfect, and there's people that may not always check all of your boxes, like, you know. And I think that, like you should want to be with that person for who they are authentically, and that should be enough for you, rather than what you think this person should be, or, like, your expectation. If they're not meeting that for you, then they're not, like, for you, and you need to be okay with, like, acknowledging that within yourself if this is something you're never going to be okay with.
So for lack of a better way of putting it, like, their worst version of themselves shouldn't necessarily cross any of your personal boundaries or any of, like, the red flags that you have set up, right? But it takes everybody a certain amount of time to reveal their quote-unquote worst version of themselves, right? So that might...
And even then, like we talked about before, it's like you're never getting somebody... There's always that 10, 20% that people will just never show somebody.
Yeah, but then it always comes out eventually the more you're with the person.
Yeah.
It's bound to, right?
Yeah,
so,
the more comfortable you get.
What if you're, like, in a situation where, like, that doesn't reveal itself until way down the line? And now, like, as the woman in the situation, you're like... Damn, like I'm kind of a lot older now, and it's like
4 kids later, 35-year marriage.
That can be a situation to where,
if, like, it's taking that person that long to open up to you, I don't know.
I mean, it depends on the quality of the person.
A lot of people are master manipulators.
That's true. That's true. 100%.
Yeah, and I think that it's just like you can know to do better and want to do better, but if you're not there yet, you're not there yet. So, I think I always would encourage people dealing with, like, crazy stuff in their relationship. I think that talk about it with people you trust, who have, you know, to give you sound advice, or who you know has your best interest at heart, and like talk about it with people so you can affirm that you're not
gauge a different perspective
or anything like that, so you maintain some sort of sanity, because when you're in something like that for, like, forever, like, long time, like, it can be really hard to see what's in front of you,
what's true,
you know, and keep track.
I always try to frame these topics from, like, a real life point of view, because I'm not gonna lie, like, I listen to some other podcasts delve into this type of stuff, and they speak into it from, like, a lens of, like, they're looking at it from social media, like the way social media looks at relationships and the quote unquote gender wars, to me, is all just the manufactured social media.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist once you put your phone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So how much of that do you think seeps into people's actual reality?
Right.
And how do you vet that out from the person you interact? Does that show itself early?
It for sure has to show itself early, because you got to think somebody that gets caught up in that social media, like, phase, it shows. You know what I mean? Because it's like the little, like, subconscious. You're always pulling your phone. You're always, you know what I mean? And then also it's just like social cues, bro. Like you kind of off. Like
you post everything on your story that you've done all day.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like
that validation from
validation is another drug too. So.
It is, and that shit can be deadly too.
So I mean, it goes back to the cliche too. It's like I was raised in the sense of like you should develop yourself emotionally, and don't seek out a relationship until you can emotionally validate yourself. I guess, I mean, I'm speaking from the perspective of like a man, right? So like, until you can validate yourself emotionally, don't go out seeking that validation.
Yeah.
You're not going to find it.
Yeah, I think that goes both ways, though.
It goes both ways, for sure.
Definitely, because I know that there's women out there who need like male attention, like they need that constantly to feel good about themselves, and like they feel like off of that. And if like then it goes into like if they're not doing a certain thing, like or like not complimenting me this way, like now I feel insecure, and now it's a problem in our relationship when it's like you should be like feeling that way about yourself, like just internally. And it also does come from like social media perspective, I think, because it's like the materialistic stuff. Like, oh, you just bought me all this shit, like these bears and like balloons and stuff, and you want to post and show out. And you see that on social media, and now you have this arbitrary expectation that this is what they should do to you to show that they care about you, when it really doesn't. Like, that shit's going to be gone in a couple hours.
Most time you don't even know the quality of their actual relationship, or if it's just for
show,
the views or the money.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, people just post stuff to post stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they could just, like, I know some people, they'll go on vacation, and then, 2 months later, all they doing is posting that. It's just like, damn, they're living in that memory because they're at work right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true, bro.
Like, it's one of those, like, I don't know. Yeah. You can't get caught up in it, but you got to be able to use it and navigate it. Especially if you're trying to be in a creative space or you're trying to make money off it. There's so much opportunity. But it's also, like, that's the other side of the whole downfall of like getting sucked into it.
And the cost of your like integrity or like your person.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like slippery slope.
But in the sense of like the quote unquote, I hate calling it that, the gender wars, but like society has changed a lot since our parents got married and whatnot. Again, like in the context of like a heterosexual relationship, like do you think there's gender roles that have to be adhered to, or is it different per every relationship?
I have to know. I think
have to. Yeah, no, not have to.
No, not have to. I think some people like it. Some people feel validated in their identity as like a man or a woman, like a straight man or straight woman. Like some people really are like, yes, that needs to be there. But I don't think it's a have to. I think that instead of like molding people, like you're collaborating, and like hopefully you guys like want to grow in your own humanness, and like and then your relationship be an extension of that, or like its own separate thing. And so you guys are growing together, and maybe you guys help each other grow, but not molding the other person. And so if that includes gender roles and that works for you guys and that makes you genuinely like happy, like
go for it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't and it's causing internal problems with yourself, and then coming out into your relationship, like
because I think a lot goes into like this idea how a man is supposed to act, and like also men like internalizing that, and if they're not meeting these quote unquote standards, they feel like less than within themselves, or like just kind of they just kind of feel like less than. And then it's also like the woman like also like putting these high expectations of what you're quote unquote supposed to do, and then they also feel like unvalidated or not fulfilled, and then like the man is feeling like insecure because they're not meeting these arbitrary expectations of like you're supposed to pay like this or like
to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
like it's like women, what do you bring to the table,
right?
And it's like men, the sprinkle movement, but I'm not a hater. Like, but that's like my own little thing. Yeah.
I mean, like, how do you guys feel? Like, do you have like an idea, like
is structure, like
of how you
submissive woman?
Go ahead, I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah.
Is that your tea?
I mean,
do you want to provide everything for your woman, or like how?
To be honest, naturally, yeah. But it's also one of those like. I'm one of the. That's a
where do you think that stems from though? Like, you feeling like
biological.
Yeah, I think just internally, like, cause it's wild, cause like my mom was a corporate woman, you know what I mean, and she like worked her way up that ladder, and you know what I mean, but she was also a housewife at the same time, or a house mom,
Stay.
Yeah.
She wasn't a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
She was a corporate woman, but also
Did like the duties of the wife.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I was brought up the same way.
Like woke up early, like up at like 3:30, 4 in the morning, cooking, making sure everything, then out to the office by 6:30 in the morning. Back at home at like 6. Yeah. Cooking, getting everything. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like taking care of me, all that shit. You know what I mean? But so that's why I can't say like, oh, you know, that's what I was raised under. I think I don't know. My dad's always been a provider, just naturally. I don't know. I feel like just internally, it's just always been like that.
Yeah. I mean, we have the same kind of upbringing because like my mom was a stay-at-home like housemaid. Like her and my dad go to work and they still go to work together in the same van and whatnot. But my mom plays her role, my dad plays his role. You know what I mean? Like my dad pays all the bills, does everything. You know what I mean? With his income. My mom's money is her to keep and do whatever she wants with it. Like aside from like education and like buying a house and things like big purchases, that's when they collaborate. But in terms of like the basic day-to-day necessities, that's where my dad feels like his role comes in. Yeah. Even though my mom works a job. And then as far as like the traditional 1950s household chores type of duties, my mom kind of fulfills that. Yeah. And I don't know whether or not that's a conversation they had before any of us were born or anything. I haven't asked them about that. But that's just kind of how they've always been set up to do it. Yeah. And that's kind of the way that I was raised. So naturally, that's kind of what I'd be looking for, right? That's kind of the same, more or less. Like you can modify it as you go because you know it's 2024. They got married in the 90s, but that's kind of like similar to what I'd be looking for, quite honestly. But in terms of saying every man should do this, that, there's no like general like rule book that says every man should do this, that, and the third. Like, yeah, you should behave. Not even. I don't even want to say that because that can get dangerous. Like, you should behave in a certain way.
You should be a good person.
You should be a good person.
Yeah,
right? A safe person to be around.
And yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but
nah, I think I kind of have a little different perspective. Like, I did grow up in a 2-parent household. You're funny for laughing.
Just laughing because
you hear that, boss?
Because our dads are both the same. They have the same name and they're both bald. And I was just thinking about that.
She's funny. Both of our dads have the same name and they're both bald. That's something we talk about. But no, I definitely grew up in a different household because I did grow up with both my parents. However, my mom went to work and my dad stayed home. Not stayed at home, not doing anything. He had his own businesses and things like that. So like that was like his stream of income. But for like the staple like bills, my mom went to work every day and she paid out the bills. Like the house is in her name and like things like that. And also on the flip side, my dad cooked and then my mom cleaned. And so like that was like their dynamic. And it like still to this day, that's like what works for them because my dad, he's very like, I don't want to work for nobody. So like he has his own like businesses and, you know, it ebbs and flows with that. And so like the stability money is from my mom going to work every day. And so that's how they pay the bills. And my mom is definitely like, they were like talking to me about it the other day about like how my dad doesn't have a credit because everything's always been in my mom's name. Mind you, they've been married since they were in their early 20s and they're like, like 35 plus years now. And so like everything was like in my mom's name. And so they were like kiki how my dad like applied for a credit card recently and he couldn't because he don't have any credit. Like not bad credit, just no credit because everything for as long as they've known been in my mom's name. And so like growing up, but my dad's also definitely the want to make all the decisions in the house and like the man of the house. And I have 2 older brothers, so definitely a male dominated like space. But yeah, I never ever in my life wanted to date a man because of my brothers and my dad.
Yeah, that's why the whole social media narrative is stupid.
Yeah, like
the way you just broke it, like everybody's situation is different, and all it takes is upfront communication.
Yeah,
which I'm sure is like what all of our parents kind of had to make it work as long as it did, right?
Yeah,
yeah, and especially something that we are privy to now as adults, because like maybe the dynamics we didn't really understand fully the gravity of it, but like now it's like you hear them might bicker or be like,
and now that I'm thinking about it, I think right now it just came to realization of why like I would never. Like in my head, I never saw myself as being this like so submissive woman to a man and like not working because like my mom didn't do that. Like she went to work every day. I'm thinking about it now because I've always just never. I just knew that was never going to be me. Like
everybody's a product of their environment.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about like mommy, like she went to work every day. Like you know, and there was never no side where I was not going to do that. Thinking back now of how that just like. Influenced my life a little bit.
That's why I always go back to. I've mentioned this a lot of times before. It's a privilege to grow up in a 2-parent household, and I feel like a lot of the confusion comes from the fact that, especially in America, a lot of people don't grow up in two-parent households.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the confusion comes from, because if you grow up in a two-parent household, like you have an example to look to. And like not a lot of people have that luxury, right? So they spend a lot of time figuring out what their role as far as their gender should be.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're kind of in this room, we're the lucky ones.
Well, baby, I have a question for you. How did your family dynamic contribute to how you view like what you want in a partner?
Yeah, so we both are the youngest and only girls. I have like 3 older brothers. The biggest,
And really big age gaps too. Like my oldest brother is 12 years older than me.
Yeah, and my oldest brother is like 20 years older than me.
Oh.
So,
Damn, okay.
So I think like my mom was a single mother, and like I really think that what was special about the way that she owned her situation was just like, it was never, we didn't have anything because someone was not here. Mm-hmm. Like she was gonna make a way to get it. And so it was never, I never had that. I'm grateful that she didn't give that to me of like
the space that something was missing, like it was lacking.
Missing, or like we're not at where we could be because
a man's not here.
Yeah. And so like I had like in my brothers through the years of me being a child, like they were kind of like the father-y figures or the more masculine like figures, but like that phased out as I got older, of course, because they're like not around or in the house anymore. So for me, I think that from watching my mom like just still like take care of herself and stuff like that, it's just like I have grown to be a little hyper independent.
I was just about to say.
And like trusting people to handle my business is like something that's really hard for me, because I'm just like, I think it gives, I feel like I'm more in control if I'm doing it. Like I would rather fuck something up myself than have someone else do it, and then now I'm hella mad at them. Like I'd rather just do it myself. But like, we are all humans. We all need help. We all survive better that way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like kind of like learning like in our relationship, or just the relationships that I have like with my friends. It's kind of easier with the people that I've been like have not like known long term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely a level of like a lot of weight around like not asking for help, but just like
doing it yourself.
Yeah, doing it myself or struggling alone versus like
sharing.
Like that's like a learning curve. Yeah.
I feel it, bro. I ain't even gonna lie.
It's okay.
I think we might have to call a wrap on this.
We got deep. Pause.
Yeah. Your boy is burnt out right now.
Yeah.
We talked about that earlier. Salute.
Hey, facts. Burnout is real. Long work weeks. But yeah, nah. I appreciate y'all coming on. You know what I mean? This was a solid ass combo.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Great little perspective.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Like we said, a one-time guest is always a welcome figure on the show.
Thank you.
So thank
I
you.
already
You
know.
got some good content out of you.
Hell yeah.
Good.
Well, damn, on behalf of the 2 Coin Podcast, it's your boy Ronnie.
I'm your brother Waleed, the other side of the coin, and we are signing out.
Yay!
Yee.
Yeah.